Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Lisa Calvano, and I'm the Dean of the Graduate School at Westchester University. And I'd like to welcome all of you to the workshop tonight. We're so glad you're here right before the Phillies game. I'd also like to introduce and thank Amanda Baker from the Career Center, who's going to lead the workshop tonight. I want to thank her for organizing the workshop and leading it tonight. Many of you are in graduate school because you'd like to advance in your career or change careers, and learning how to navigate the job search process is really key to your achieving your professional goals. And crafting a resume or CV that helps you stand out is an important step to take in that process. I really hope you enjoy the session tonight, and please do let us know if there are any other career-related workshops you're interested in. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Amanda and have a wonderful session tonight.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Hi, everyone. It's great to see you here. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Amanda Baker. I'm an assistant director at the Career Development Center. We've still got a couple of people coming in, so I'm going to try and keep my eye on that and admit them as they get here. You do not need to turn your camera on. We are recording this session, so you will be able to watch it again later on YouTube. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I will check in the chat every so often just to make sure that I'm keeping up on questions. Basically tonight, I'm going to talk about the differences between resumes and curriculum vitas, kind of when to use each document, what kinds of content goes on each document. And I have lots of samples and information. The slides will be available on Handshake after I'm finished. I can also send them to Lisa if she would like to distribute them. And I guess that's all. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my PowerPoint and share my screen. Let's see. All right, can I get a thumbs up if you can see my screen? From anyone? Thank you, Tara. Thank you so much. All right. Bear with me. Let's see. Okay. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is check in. So we do keep track of the folks who attend our events. If you would be so kind as to scan the QR code with your phone and check in on Handshake. Handshake is one of our great resources. There are thousands of jobs and internships there for both graduate and undergraduate students. And it's where we kind of track all of our data and all of our events. You can also schedule appointments on Handshake. So it really is the primary way that we track participation in our events. I will bring the QR code up again at the end of the event if you don't get a chance to check in now, and so I really appreciate that. All right, we have lots of programs and services available for graduate students. Literally everything I'm going to share with you tonight, we do have. You can make a one-on-one appointment with a career counselor to talk about. We have drop-in hours Monday, Wednesday, and Friday during classes from 1 to 3 p.m. We are located on main campus in 225 Lawrence Hall. We have a lot of different kinds of resources. We can help with job and internship search, resumes and cover letters, interview preparation, networking, and there's lots of events and programs available to all students, including graduate students, lots of career fairs, industry meetups, and so forth. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between a curriculum vitae and a resume. You're also welcome photographs of any of my slides as we go along. The primary difference is in the United States, a curriculum vitae tends to be used by professionals in higher education and academia. A resume tends to be used by pretty much everyone else. In other countries, you will hear the word curriculum vitae or CV used the way we use resume in the United States, but there are a few differences. So again, in the US, a curriculum vitae tends to be as long as it needs to be. Many of your faculty have 20 and 30-page CVs. A resume is never more than 1 to 2 pages. In certain industries, it should never be more than 1 page. Sometimes you'll use a CV if applying for government positions in the US, but mostly it's used in academia and research. A resume is used pretty much everywhere else. On a curriculum vitae, you want to make sure you include all of your publications and presentations. Sometimes these are appropriate on a resume, or usually you will include a partial list. The content really matters most on a CV because you have length at your disposal. Really, the content is what makes the most difference. Style and content are both important for a resume, and bad style can actually be problematic on a resume, and you'll see why in a few minutes. You really can keep your CV the same for everything you're ever going to use it for, but a resume can be adapted for different kinds of positions that you'll be applying for. References are typically listed at the end of a CV, but they are never listed on a resume. You can submit a separate document that includes your references should you need to do so if you're submitting a resume. And again, if there are questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I will try to keep an eye on that as well. Okay. There we go. You want to make sure that you're doing some company research when you are getting ready to write a resume or a CV. Primarily, a resume should be targeted at a particular organization. It should include your contact information, a profile or a summary statement, your education, your experiences, including leadership or internship or practicum experience, even extracurricular activities if you're right fresh out of undergrad, and other kinds of content. Can I skip a slide? No, okay. Whereas a curriculum vitae, again, is going to be a little bit longer. It's also going to include contact information and education, but it's going to go into things like research and teaching experiences, publications and presentations, professional organizations, service, including departmental service. And it might have things, it might have whole sections for things like awards, fellowships, honors, and grants, just depending on what you are applying for. And you may also have a cultural competency section on a CV as well. Both are going to include your contact information. It's really important that your name is the first thing at the top of either your resume or your curriculum vitae. A lot of people label this document with the word resume or the words curriculum vitae at the top of the page. This is not necessary, and you can leave those off. You can use a full address on a resume. Most people use a personal address, although these days I'm seeing more just city and state or leaving that off altogether because so many positions are remote. On a CV, a lot of people will use their professional address, particularly if they already have a research or faculty position with a university. You can generally on a resume want to use one phone number and one email address. On a CV, I have seen more than one phone number, depending on how the person wishes to be contacted. You can also include things like a website, a LinkedIn profile, a link to a blog, depending on your field and your areas of expertise. Now, both can include a summary or a profile statement. This is a place to really emphasize your strengths. This is not a place to repeat information. A lot of people write in their summary what their degree is. That is not necessary because your degree is going to be in your education section. Use a summary or a profile to talk about the kind of position you're looking for, to summarize the key skills and strengths that you want an employer to know about you, and make sure these are things that appear nowhere else on the document. Other sections of your resume will show support for anything that you put in your summary. I, for example, have been in higher education career development for 20 years. That's the first thing in my summary, 20 years of higher education career development experience, because that's something I want employers to know about me. Okay. Both are going to have an education section. This should include all of your degrees. It should never include high school, unless you are a teacher applying for a job in your home school district. All graduate students should remove high school from their resume or CV. For each degree on both documents, you're going to include the name of the institution, the city and state where it's located, or city and country if it's outside the US, the name of your degree, the name of your major, any minors or double majors, the month and year of graduation, even if it hasn't happened yet. If you're writing a thesis or a dissertation, you can include your title in your education section. You can also include honors and awards, such as Dean's List for undergrad or scholarships that you may have earned, or if there are several of these, you can put those in their own section. Okay. So I wanted to show you a couple of samples of what this might look like. Again, you're welcome to take pictures of my slides, and I will make them available later. So let's say that you have attended different universities for your bachelor's degree, your master's degree, and your doctoral degree. You can list them all separately with the name of the university first. You'll see that I've included the locations, the dates of graduation, my thesis title, my minor from my undergrad, and so forth. A couple more examples. Let's say you're getting an MBA and you did your bachelor's degree at another university, maybe a few years ago. You can list them both. You can either write out the names of your degrees or abbreviate them. So you'll notice for my MBA student, they've listed their degrees first. Other folks list the name of the university first. If you've earned more than one degree at the same university, list the name of the university once, as below with the MSW and BSW. You can abbreviate your degrees or you can write them out. Just make sure you're consistent with how you are writing your degree. If you like abbreviations, use abbreviations. If you like periods, make sure you put periods in all of them. If you don't like periods, most academic degrees can be abbreviated on a resume without the periods. Just make sure you're consistent. Again, if there's questions, please feel free to put those in the chat. For a resume, for most of you, the next section after your education section is going to be an experience section. This might be labeled as professional experience or work experience. If you are fresh out of undergrad, it might just be internship experience. You might also have leadership and activities. You might have volunteering or community service. If you've never really had a job outside of on-campus research, you can add coursework or projects if you are younger and fresh out of undergrad. For every experience that you include on a resume, we need a job title, even if it's volunteer or member or simply intern. We need the name of the organization or the company, the location, again, city and state in the US or city and country outside the US. And in this case, we want the full range of dates that you worked there. Again, I have lots of samples to show you some different options. All right, for a CV, we need the job title, the organization name, again, location and range of dates. Most CVs are going to have sections. Teaching experience will be its own section. Research experience will be its own section. Consulting might be a section. Depending on your field, you might also include practicum or internship experiences on your CV. You might include your graduate assistantships. You are generally not going to include things unrelated to your current degree program. So if you are earning a doctoral degree, you are probably not going to include all those fast food jobs you had as an undergrad, right? We're going to stick to the things directly related to your terminal degree and only the things actually related to that degree. Whereas a resume, I think you have a little more leeway to include things that are unrelated. If you don't have too much related experience yet, unrelated positions can show transferable skills. So when you're describing your experiences, think who, what, when, where, how, why. Who were you working with? What were you doing? What are you most proud of from the positions that you have had? When or how did you do your tasks? Where were you working? How were you spending your time? Why did you do these tasks? When anyone is reading your documents, the bullet points under your jobs are the most important piece. Employers and recruiters want to see accomplishments. They want to see actions you took and the result of those actions. They want to see quantify anything you can. If you work with people or money or are in sales, use numbers to quantify the things that you do to show to give weight to your ability. For example, if you are the treasurer for an organization and you tell me you manage a budget of $1,000, that tells me something about you. Whereas if you say you manage a budget of $10,000, that tells me something else about you. But if you've left that number off, I don't have a way of knowing what your capabilities are. So several examples. I tried to cover a range of industries and fields. So you'll see in this case, the section heading is public health experience. This person is trying to emphasize that they have worked in public health. We've got the 4 key pieces of information: the job titles, the name of the company, the location, and the range of dates. And then take a look at the way that the bullet points are written. The first words: co-manage, create, provide, conducted, assisted. Just reading those first words gives some power to what I'm reading about you. If all I read is those first words of those bullet points, I still have a sense of what you're able to do. We call these power verbs or action verbs, and there is a list of them on our website. I'm just going to pop our website into the chat one more time. So you will see here our website and a link to Handshake with all of our resources for grad students. You'll also notice here that there's a lot of really technical terms that you may not be familiar with. In your field, you're the expert in the jargon that's used in your industry and in your field. Use that information, use that jargon on your resume. Just make sure your audience will understand what you're talking about. And if you're not sure, write out things like acronyms for an HR person or a lay person. All right. Maybe you have internship experience. Maybe you're fresh out of undergrad and starting a graduate degree, and you've done a couple of really interesting internships. In this case, you'll see the person has justified their dates and their locations. We've still got a great description. Notice that I've increased the fan base on YouTube by 25% within 2 months. Just adding a couple of numbers really gives some weight to what this person is able to do. You'll also notice that I always use the number and not the word. I've written the number 2 and not the word TWO to again, draw the eye into those numbers and show what I'm able to do. Notice also the tense of the verbs. In this case, this person is not currently working in either of these positions. So all of our verbs are past tense: worked, created, posted, contributed, prepared, developed, always in past tense. And yes, you can name drop. If you worked on a campaign for Quaker Oats, name drop Quaker Oats. Just be sure you're not giving away any proprietary information when writing a resume or a CV. Maybe you have a lot of customer service experience and most of your experiences are not directly related to your current degree program. We can still have a section on customer service experience. In this case, I have more than one job with the same employer. So you'll notice I've got the name of the company listed first, Urban Outfitters, my 2 different positions with the range of dates, and bullet points under each one because they are slightly different skill sets and responsibilities that I had at each position. And you'll notice that I have past jobs as well. You'll again notice that I was awarded Employee of the Month in May of 2018. that I can serve over 75 customers per shift, using the trained and supervised 10 customer associates. Just using those numbers gives some weight to what you're able to do. I've started every line with a verb, and they're all in past tense because I no longer have any of these positions. Again, if there's questions, please feel free to add those to the chat. Now, suppose you have had a lot of jobs. They are completely unrelated to where you're going, and you just don't feel the need to spend the space on the page describing them. At the very bottom of a resume, you could do a work history section and simply list the title, the company, the location, and the range of dates. Everybody knows what a lifeguard is and can probably figure out what the rest of those positions are. If they're not sure what an aquatics director is, lifeguard and swim instructor are going to give them a hint. So on a resume, if I want to show that I've worked for a really long time, but I have other more recent practicums and research experiences from my graduate degree that I'm trying to highlight, I still can add my work history at the bottom of the page to show that background without giving a long explanation for things that are completely unrelated. All right, a lot of graduate students do research experience with their faculty over the summers, or they're working on a thesis or a dissertation project. So it's really important to have a section on your resume called research experience if this is the kind of work that you are doing. In these cases, this would especially go on a CV if you are on a curriculum vitae. If you are applying for research positions, you want to make sure you're talking about the research that you have done. In each case, you want to name the lab or the class that you took, the principal investigator or professor. Make sure that when you're writing your faculty names that you list their degree. So don't refer to your faculty as Dr. Lisa Calvano, refer to them with their name and their degree. And Lisa, I forget, so it might be Lisa Calvano, comma, PhD, or whatever her correct degree would be. You'll give the overview or purpose of the project. Be sure, again, you're using the technical jargon of your field. How did you do your research? What techniques, equipment, software, or participants were you using to meet your objectives? What was your role? What were your contributions? And were there any key accomplishments or outcomes? Again, I would say be careful not to give away anything proprietary on your CV. If you have made a new discovery or are doing something really unique and interesting and it's not published yet, you may wish to leave some of those details off until you are actually published. And so it might look something like this. This is a more traditional scientific research, but it does give you an idea of, oh, I don't know why there's a big red mark there, but it does give you an idea of what this person did, how they did it. In the first case, the outcome is they produced a 20-page report. In the second case, they're simply listing the techniques that they've used and how they use them. So it gives you an idea of what a research experience section might look like. Okay. If you're writing a CV, you're going to have a teaching experience section. This will date back to what you're doing now in your grad program. In many cases, you're probably doing a graduate assistantship, so you can certainly include that. You want to include the level and number of students, the kinds of things you're doing. Are you grading? Are you proctoring exams? Are you lecturing? For having office hours, giving instruction, maybe you're mentoring students. If you've taken a course in teaching skills or curriculum design, you can list those things on your CV. You can also briefly explain the course content if it's not apparent from the course title. In most cases, I do recommend listing the course title. The numbers are usually not as useful, particularly outside of your own university. They may mean something else at a different university, so less commonly used. And it might look something like this. If you're currently doing a graduate assistantship, you can talk about teaching an undergraduate course, how you're evaluating students, the fact that you're holding office hours, right? And how you're trying to engage your students. If you're going for a faculty position, both teaching experience and research experience are going to be key to getting those interviews and getting those first positions, particularly after a doctoral program. If you are starting to get published or have presentations, this is a fantastic thing to have. You want to make sure that you list all of your publications, presentations, everything, abstracts, books, journal articles, invited panel discussions, all those kinds of things would count. If you're just getting started and have a few things, you're probably going to have one section and list everything in order by date, with the most recent first. If you move forward in your career and have lots of these kinds of things, you can separate out subheadings. Maybe you'll have a subheading for book chapters or conference presentations or peer-reviewed journal articles. So you can have subheadings as you go along. If you are writing a resume and are going from an industry position, but want to make sure you include your publications, you can say something like selected publications, and then maybe you're going to list 3 out of the 7 that you have, right? So your heading literally would be publications, selected publications 3 out of 7, full list available upon request. Then you're going to list them. Be sure you use the citation style of your field, excuse me. Whether that's APA style, MLA style, Chicago style, there's a lot of them. But all of them will help you figure out how to cite and how to cite appropriately the different things that you have. Be sure and list things in reverse chronological order with the most recent or current thing first. If you are in the process of publishing, there are specific ways of delineating that on your CV. For example, if the item is not published yet, but it's been submitted, you can use the word submitted and you can list the journal that you've submitted to. If it's accepted for publication, you can use accepted or in press. Until it actually comes out. Once it is actually published, you will then, of course, update your CV to include the journal number and page numbers. And I do have a sample. Thank you so much to Professor Chen in our computer science department. These are copied from his amazing publications and presentations. You'll notice that they are in order by date with the most recent thing first. You'll notice we've got both presentations and publications on one list. He has a lot more than that, and he does have them separated out, but I wanted to point out it's something else. If you are not the first author on a paper, which you often are not if you're working with a group of people, if you bold your name in the list of authors under your publication section, notice how it jumps off the page. So I can see at a glance that each one of these documents belongs to Dr. Chen, whether or not he is the first author. And you'll also notice they are not in order, alphabetical order, the way you would do when writing a research paper. They are in order by date with the most recent item first. So again, be sure you're using the citation style of your field. Be sure you are keeping an accurate list of this kind of thing, particularly if you are writing a CV. As you move throughout your career, these will be critical in getting a job as a faculty member or as a researcher in government or other academic institutions. It will also be critical if you're going for a faculty role and want tenure one of these days. On both kinds of documents, you can list professional organizations. Generally, you would include the fact that you are a member, or if you've had a leadership role, or a committee position, you certainly can include that kind of thing. I recommend writing out any acronyms, particularly if your reader may not know what the acronym means, or if it's a Greek letter organization, be sure you write out the Greek letters. Don't use the Greek letter, write out the Greek letters. So write out the word sigma, don't use the symbol for a sigma. Be sure to include the range of dates. And if you are adding any bullet points, you certainly can include things like knowledge, skills, accomplishments. If you're on the conference planning committee, there's going to be a lot of different kinds of things that you can talk about on either a resume or a CV. Service is very important on a CV, and professional organization service can count towards that. And if you are, for example, in an honor society, for example, in psychology, you might be in Chi Sigma Iota, right? So you want to make sure you include that those honor societies on there as well. If you have any leadership or volunteering or community service, this can be included on both kinds of documents. Again, you want to make sure you're including your role, even if it's just volunteer, the name of the organization, the city and state within the US or city and country outside the US, and the range of dates that you volunteered. Make sure you are including your accomplishments or outcomes or the knowledge that you gained. A lot of people do a lot of really interesting work outside of their normal 9 to 5. If you're coaching your kids' softball team, or you're the treasurer for a community-based organization, or you're working in a soup kitchen over the holidays, or you're building homes with Habitat for Humanity, all of these things would be very interesting to put on either a resume or a CV to show another aspect of you without giving away anything too personal. And here's an example of what that might look like. Now, let's say that so maybe I was a member of the Black Student Union when I was a first-year student or at some point during my undergrad career, but I really didn't go to that many meetings. I didn't attend that many events. I just was kind of a member. I don't need to list all the bullet points, but when I started to get into other things like being a peer mentor or being an orientation guide, then I'm going to give more detail in terms of what I did and how I did it. For either document, particularly for CVs, you may need to add a section for honors and awards or fellowships and grants. If there's just a couple of these, they could go generally under the education section or under the research that they go with. But if you have several, you may want a whole separate section for fellowships and grants where you list each successful grant. Be sure and include any relevant academic awards, departmental kinds of things. Be sure and include the name of the organization or department or institution or agency. Be sure to include the title and the date. If it's something like a grant, I would include the dollar amount, but not for a scholarship. If the honor or award is not obvious from the title, you can add a brief description of it should you choose to do so. Okay. So skills, this is going to be more likely to come on a resume depending on your field. You'll see on the left-hand side generally is my advice about what kinds of skills can go on a resume. On the right-hand side is a sample, more likely in computer science, where a skills section is of utmost importance. You can include any kind of software, hardware, databases. If you're more in a lab setting, what kind of equipment, processes, techniques, or procedures are you using? You can include interpersonal and transferable skills. If you're in psychology and counseling, those things become very important. If you're in communications, it might be social media platforms, blogs, search engine optimization. If you're in the medical profession, it might be equipment or techniques that you're using with clients or patients. So you need to know your field, the kinds of skills employers are looking for, and give them a list of all of those things. Sometimes when you're applying to a large company, a computer will scan your resume or your curriculum vitae for the skills they are looking for before a human ever really looks at your document. So you want to make sure that you are thorough with your skills and your keywords on either your resume or your CV. If you are writing a resume and you speak other languages, they can go right under the skills section. If you are writing a CV and you speak other languages, you may want a separate section for this, again, depending on your field. So generally you want to consider your ability to read, write, speak, and translate among languages. And then you can include those languages. So for example, if you were born and raised in 2 different languages, then you can call yourself bilingual. Maybe I'm bilingual in Spanish and English because I was born in a household that speaks Spanish, and I live in the United States where television was in English and school was in English. I can call myself bilingual. If you sort of know enough to get by in a foreign country as a tourist, I would call that conversational. If you are able to, if you sort of can speak a little bit of the language and are getting more fluent, you can talk about basic fluency, intermediate fluency, or simply call yourself fluent in a language. If you are from another country or were born in a household that 100% spoke a different language, you can use the word native to delineate the fact that you have native proficiency in a language. In the United States, you generally never list English unless you are bilingual, and then you need to list the 2 languages that you are bilingual. If you are trying to talk about cultural competence on a resume, you can do this by talking about things like travel, study abroad, living in another place for a time. I think we want to be very careful not to make it sound like I drink margaritas on the beach, right? We want to make sure we're talking about expanding our worldview by traveling to countries such as, and then list 3 to 5 of the countries you've been to. If you really have immersed yourself in another culture, you can talk about living with a family. You can talk about your study abroad experience. You can mention the names of the countries that you've been to, or you can give a lot more detail to these things. So for someone who's had, a work abroad and studied abroad, or maybe lived abroad, I might have a whole section called cultural competence, and then list the study abroad and the way I would list my education or any other experience on my document. Again, on a CV, this might kind of be its own section, depending on your field. On a resume, these kinds of things are probably going to go with the skills section, unless you are specifically in international business or something like that, or have extensive experience abroad. There's a lot of other kinds of content that can be useful on either a resume or a CV. I think these are going to vary a little bit with your industry or your field. Patents are by country, so you want to make sure you include the country, the patent name and number, and the date, and any pertinent details of the patent. If you are certified, for example, if you are CPR certified or a licensed counselor or have other similar credentials in your field, be sure you include them with the name of the credential, the organization that provided you the credential, and the range of dates that it's valid. If you are in a more creative or artistic field, you might have a portfolio or exhibits of your work. You absolutely want to include those kinds of things. If you have an online portfolio, certainly include the URL. If you're an artist and you've done exhibits, you would include that kind of thing. If you're in theater, you would include the positions you've held, the parts that you have played, and the names of the plays, the name of the theater, the location, and the range of dates. Of course, departmental involvement can be included, just like any other job or experience. I did talk about awards, fellowships, and grants a little bit already. If you don't have any of this kind of stuff and you're saying, Amanda, what do I do if I don't have, I'm not quite there yet. I'm right out of undergrad. I've started this grad program. You could add a section called research interests or areas of specialization, and then delineate the specific areas of interest or skills that are directly related to your field. So if you're just starting out in counseling, for example, you might talk about your theoretical orientation and the kinds of skills that you use in that theoretical orientation. If you are in a more research-based field, you might say my research interests include, and then name specifically the things that you most enjoy researching. If you're applying, for example, if you're in a master's program or undergraduate program now, and you're applying for a doctoral program later, you might have a section on your CV or resume that talks about your research interests, if you'll be doing a dissertation or a final project like that for your doctoral program. Let's see, I think I have a yes. Things that never to include on either document. Do not put references available upon request. This is old school. Nobody expects to see it anymore. We definitely want to get rid of that. Pictures are never appropriate. Photographs of yourself are never appropriate. There are 1,000 templates online that have a place for your picture. I beg you not to do this. A lot of larger companies use artificial intelligence to scan resumes and CVs when they are submitted, and they will reject a document that has a photograph on it because of bias in hiring. Graphics are usually not appropriate unless you are in graphic design or a field like that. Personal information, you know, every once in a while, I'll see like children's names or my age or that kind of stuff. Never put that stuff on there. Never, ever include things like your social security number, your date of birth. In some other countries, it is very appropriate to mention where you are from, where you were born, what your date of birth is. This is completely inappropriate and in fact illegal in the United States. So it may seem pretty innocuous for an employer to say, oh, where are you from? If you're from Podunk, Ohio. But if I ask you where you're from, and we'll pick on Russia because they're picking on Ukraine. If you tell me you're from Russia and I do not hire you because you are from Russia, I have now discriminated against you. And that's the part that's illegal in the United States. So do not list on your resume any kind of personal information like that. Unrelated experiences, generally we usually don't need it all on a CV. In some cases, they can be included on a resume. But I would tend to lean toward keeping it related to the thing you're applying for, not the unrelated stuff you've done in the past. For most adults, anything more than 10 years old should drop off your resume, unless it is directly related to where you're going. If you're writing a CV, we need everything you've done back to that is directly related to your field, back to your original degrees. So if you look at one of your faculty members' CVs, you'll find things well over 10 years old for those folks who have a lot of experience, and that's appropriate. We never want to put hobbies or interests on a resume. If I tell you that I speak Klingon and love to knit and like long walks on the beach and candlelight dinners, suddenly I'm writing a personal ad and not a resume anymore. So I urge you to leave the personal hobbies and interests off the resume altogether. Sometimes these things are obvious from the volunteering you do or the professional organizations you're involved in, and I would encourage you to keep those things, but just a list of hobbies, not so much. Some visual considerations. So again, less important on a CV, very important on a resume. We want to make sure that we're using the white space appropriately on the page. With a resume, you can go down to 1/2-inch margins. You can drop down to 10-point font size. On a CV, I would say make sure that things are breaking over the page appropriately, but I'm less concerned with the way it's formatted because you have all the space in the world to add things. On a resume, we have 1 to 2 pages at the most. So our geography is a little bit limited on that document, and we want to make sure we're really keeping things tight. Use bold for emphasis. If you bold everything, nothing's going to look emphasized anymore. We recommend bullet points on a resume and not paragraphs, although I do see that occasionally. We still recommend bringing printed paper copies to career fairs and networking events, if you can believe it. If you're submitting this document through like a website or emailing it to someone, I recommend saving it as a PDF file with your name and the name of the organization, or just simply your name. Thousands of people have emailed me their resumes over the last 20 years, and guess what? They're all named resume. Name your document with your name and or the name of the company you're applying for. It'll make everyone's life a little bit easier. Check your spelling, my friends. If you hear nothing else from me tonight, hear this: check your spelling. I am flabbergasted at the very simple words that are misspelled on resumes. And I know you're writing it at 3 a.m. because you're frantically trying to get it done and apply to jobs. But take the time and check your spelling. Get a second opinion, get a third opinion. Come to the Career Center. We are happy to help you with things like grammar and punctuation. You want these things to be consistent. The spelling has to be dead on. Don't tell me you are detail oriented and then spell the word oriented wrong. That is not going to go over very well. You must be honest on your resume. I read stories all the time about people getting fired for lying on their resume or their application. Please be honest on your resume or your CV. If you, let's say, where are we? It's the beginning of November. So let's say I have an internship that starts in January. I probably shouldn't put it down on my document until I've actually started the position, because a lot can happen between now and then, as we know. So it's a good idea to hold off on adding things to your resume until you actually start doing them. Be concise, be relevant. On a CV, again, you have more space, so you can be a little more verbose. Be consistent with things like a punctuation and abbreviations. If you like hyphens, make sure they're all the same length. If you like commas, just make sure you've been really consistent with that. At the Career Development Center, we are happy to help you. We critique every resume and CV that is uploaded in a handshake. You can come to our drop-in hours, which are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 11 to 1 in 225 Lawrence on main campus. You can make an appointment in person, by phone, or by Zoom to have an email, to have a resume critique, or you can email your document to cdc@wcupa.edu, and I will pop that in the chat. All right. We've come to the end of my formal presentation. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. You can follow us on Instagram. This recording will be available on our YouTube page soon. We are also on Facebook and on LinkedIn. You are welcome to follow us there. You're welcome to take photographs of this slide or use the QR code to follow us on Instagram. We have fabulous undergraduate student employees that do all of our really cool stuff on Instagram. And last but not least, I'm going to leave this up for a moment. If you came in late, I would appreciate it if you scan the QR code on the right to verify your attendance. And for those of you who've been with me the whole time, we have a very quick 4-question survey on career development in general that we'd love to get your feedback on. Again, if there are questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and I will be happy to answer them. Yes, I think you said earlier that we should use numerals instead of spelling out the numbers when writing out work experience. Yes, I do always recommend using the number and not the word. If you were writing a formal paper, numbers less than 10 are generally written as words. However, we're not writing a formal paper, we're writing a resume and we're trying to be concise. So if I tell you that I supervise 8 student employees, if I use the number 8 instead of the word EIGHT, that number 8 jumps off the page and catches the eye of my reader. On average, a recruiter will spend about 7 to 10 seconds glancing over a resume. A number will jump out, bolded things will jump out. And they'll go right to things like job titles and dates, because those are the things they're trying to verify quickly to see if they want to move forward with taking you more seriously as a candidate and interviewing you. So yes, we always recommend using the number and not the words, because it can give some weight to your experience and it easily jumps off the page and can be seen by the eye. Tara, I hope that answers your question. If there's other questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute yourself and fire away.
Hi, sorry, I came in late. I was at work, sorry. So I only caught a little bit. So I had a question when you referenced the CV versus resume.
Yes.
So when you were talking about making, including your personal information,
Uh-huh.
so something like your phone number, because I know that's been something where I've had recruiters reach out and then they'll say, the phone number is not on the resume. But then I've been to, things like this where they say, don't put your phone number or like your address or things like that, like identifiers like that. So then is that something that would be for the CV? Because usually when I apply with my resume.
So I just put up my slide with the main differences between Curriculum Vitae and resume for your information, Minnie. We are recording this section and this session, and it will be available on YouTube later in case you want to go back and look at it again.
Okay.
I recommend always using one email address and one phone number on either document. If you don't put a phone number, how will the company call you to invite you for an interview? Lots of places these days are texting people for interviews or calling folks for interviews. I always recommend using both a phone number and a phone number where you can get a reliable message and one email address where you are sure to get that email. You do not have to put your mailing address. I think especially as a woman, fewer and fewer people are wanting to put their home address on a resume, especially if they're uploading it in a public forum. So you can leave your location off your resume, or you could just put the city and state. So any of you could put Westchester, PA or Philadelphia, PA on your resume because we are technically in the greater Philadelphia area. You could also put the location where you're going to. Let's say you are moving across the country after graduation for whatever reason, put the city and state where you plan to go so that that tells the employer that's where you're looking for a job. So yeah, I would definitely leave the address off. I would definitely include a phone number so that they are able to contact you.
Okay, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Are there, again, you can unmute yourself to ask questions or pop those into the chat anytime. I'm going to, for those of you who came in late, I'm also going to add, this is our website and our information on Handshake for graduate students. So we do have services dedicated to graduate students, and I did put a quick start guide for CVs attached to the article in Handshake for your information. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I thank you all for joining us this evening. I am happy to stick around and answer other questions. I hope this was a good use of your time. I hope you learned something, and I hope that we'll be seeing you for a follow-up resume or CV critique in the Career Center soon. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Sorry, I had just one more question.
Oh, sure, happy to help.
So I've used the Career Center. You guys have been a great help for me. So my question, as far as the resume goes, so with the resume versus like a cover letter, because I remember you said something about emphasizing your experience. Mm-hmm. So then isn't that almost like, I know you like you edit your resume a little bit to kind of fit the job description that you're applying for, like a little bit, just to emphasize the wording. But isn't that more so the job of the cover letter at that point? Because I find myself kind of editing my resume a little too much sometimes, and then I forget, things like that. So
I would say, so the resume is the details. The resume is your past jobs, your education, your degrees, the dates, the job titles, your accomplishments. The cover letter is the big picture. The cover letter talks about your passion, your interest in your field, why you are a good fit for this particular job, and why you are a good fit, why you are interested in the organization as a whole. If you're applying to all pretty much the same kind of job, I would say the resume doesn't need to change that much from one application to another, but the cover letter should change dramatically from one job application to another, because you need to name the job you're applying for, the company you're applying to, and say why you are interested in the company. On the first link that I put in the chat, there is a section for resumes and cover letters, and you will see lots more information on cover letters, including samples and other information. And we are happy to review a cover letter in the same way we review resumes to help you customize that document.
Okay, thank you. I can't see the link, I think because I came in late. I only see 2 messages in the chat.
Oh, let me put it in one more time. Oh, you know what? I must have put it to a specific
Person. Oh, okay.
Yeah, hang on. Let me put it to everyone. There we go. Oh.
Okay.
So hopefully you can see that. The first one is a link to the Career Development Center website, all the information for graduate students. The second one is a link to Handshake, a specific Handshake article with all of our resources for graduate students, including a quick start guide for Curriculum Vitae.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I've been using Handshake a lot lately, actually, so this is helpful. I'll look through this.
And I'm also going to put our email address in the chat for you one more time. It's cdc@wcupa.edu. Minnie, you're the last one hanging in with me. Is there anything else that I can do for you this evening?
Sorry, no, that's it. I'll watch the recording, but thank you so much. Those were like my pressing questions.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I hope you have a great night.
Thank you. You as well.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.